Okay, so let's get started. I want to welcome you guys to the Macrame 101 lesson number 4. We appreciate you guys following our macrame course. Today I am going to be teaching you how to do a button closure. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to learn how to create this kind of closure instead of the one that has the ends hanging here. Okay, there is a lot of people that do not like to have, something hanging on their macrame bracelet. So I'm going to be showing you how you can create a button closure, whether it's with a bead or with an actual button. So I'm going to go over the materials that I'm going to be using for this demonstration, and we're going to use techniques that have already been covered in lesson 1, 2, and 3. So if you are new to our macrame course or videos, then you want to go ahead and follow the past 3 lessons that are on our playlist. That is the Macrame 101 basic course, and I will also go ahead and tag them on the YouTube video. I'm going to go ahead and tag that playlist on top of the video so that you guys can see it. Okay, make sure that you go to lesson 1, 2, and 3 before starting lesson 4. So now we're going to go over the materials that I am going to be using for this demonstration. I'm going to be using 8mm beads. Make sure that they have the opening that are big enough to go through your 2 strands. I'm going to be using the 0.8mm nylon cord. I'm going to be using, of course, my measuring tape, my scissors, and my lighting device so that I can go ahead and seal the ends. Okay, for your materials that you're going to use a button as well. You can use a button like this. Now let me tell you how big my button is. So this button here is about 3/4 of an inch. That's approximately how big my button is. You can use a button that has the opening like this, like a little opening through, or you can use one that has the holes. I recommend the one that has 2 holes only and not 4 holes. Okay, if you're using a button that has the holes on the top, make sure that you use one that is 2 instead of 4. Okay, and if you don't have a button, you don't want to use a button, you can also use a large size bead. So you can use an 8mm bead for your button closure as well. So it doesn't matter what type of button that you use, just stay away from the ones that have the 4 openings. Okay, as you can see, this one has where you can put your string through here. It's clear and you can't really see it, but there it is. It's right through there. You can use that one, or the ones that have that little loop like this. Okay, so those are the materials that I'm going to be using for the demonstration. And of course, we cannot forget my bracelet board. You're going to need a bracelet board or whatever you use of the things that we mentioned in lesson 1. Okay, so here we're going to go. The next step, we're going to be showing you how to attach your button to your cord, and I'll let you know the measurements as well. So now I'm going to teach you how to add this button onto your base cord. Okay, so I will go ahead and tell you how long I made this. So this one's still going to be the same size that we have been using throughout lesson 1, 2, and 3. We are going to do this for 42 inches long. So 42 inches long, and folded in half, it's going to be about 21, 22. Okay, so that's going to be the size that we have for our base string. For our working, I kind of maybe went a little overboard, and I did fold it in half. It measures about 40 inches. So we're talking like an 80-inch long cord. We're going to fold it in half. It's going to be our working string. I went a little overboard because I am going to be doing the eyelet at the end. So it's really important to have enough rather than not have enough, okay? So we are going to get our button, and we're going to find that little loop. And if you guys remember, in lesson 3, I believe, we did a pendant knot. You guys remember that knot? That knot comes in handy everywhere you look with your handmade jewelry. When it comes to nylon cord, it is going to be very important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab you can get like a little beading wire folded in half so that you can use this to put through here. You're going to grab it, this is going to be your base strand, okay? Remember, your base strand. The 42-inch long strand is going to be folded in half to become about 21 inches approximately, and we're going to strand this. We're going to put this through our button. Again, my button is 3/4 of an inch. Okay, that's how much it measures. And I'm going to do my pendant knot here. So once you have your button right there, you're going to do your pendant knot. So I'm going to go ahead in the next step, show you step by step how to do this again. So don't forget, make sure that you have your strand going this way. You have it through your button, and we will go to the pendant knot. So once that you have your strand put through either button, bead, whatever it is, style of button you're going to use, we're going to do the pendant knot. So I'm going to come here through the loop that I've put through my button. I am going to make sure that I open this up, and I am going to put these 2 strands on this side through that loop. I'm going to bring it over here. Okay, so now you have your loop on one side and you have your 2 strands on the other. Okay, do you see this right here? You want to make sure that you leave your finger right here. So you can change positions and put your finger this way. That way your strand is on one side, the loop. We kind of just crisscross them over, and this is your strands, okay, on the other side. So now what you're going to do is you're going to grab this loop here, and you're going to do a twist. Remember the little figure 8 kind of, where you're just going to twist it. Okay, that's your little twist there. And then you're going to again pull this way, this other side. Make sure that when you're pulling it through that you're holding on to that loop. So now it went from one side to another to that side again. And then you can do as many as you want. It will pile up. So if you do another going through, you're going to twist and then go through back again. So I did it twice. So now, there it goes, there it goes. You're going to make it go all the way close to your button. Like this. It's a nice and clean button. So you can do as many layers as you want, as long as you twist it every time you pass it through. It just adds a little layer. You just have to make sure that if you do too many, I wouldn't do more than 3, honestly. That would be great. Okay, so this is the basic way to add your button so that you can do your closure, button closure bracelet, macrame bracelet. Okay, so there you go. Make sure you practice that a couple of times until you get that pendant knot right where it needs to be. The good thing about the pendant knot, it is easy to loosen up. You just go ahead and get like a little tweezer. You can get the tweezers that are very thin like this and kind of go in there and loosen it up to redo it again. But as you can see, that looks really nice. So now we're going to go ahead and show you how to put it on your board, how to place it so that you can start doing your macrame bracelet with the button on here. So if you were going to use, for your button closure, you're going to use a bead. You would put your bead through your strand like this, and you're going to do your overhand knot around, making sure you bring this through, and then you're pulling this through this loop right here, and then holding it, and then bringing this and just going all the way as close as you can get. You see how close I am? Just keep pulling on those strands. You might have to do one at a time to tighten as you go. And see, we want it to be in the center, so that's where you get and kind of center it, and make sure you go here. So there you go. That would be your button. Okay, so now that we have our button on our base string, we're going to attach it to our board. You can put this, like I said, you can put it on the table. In lesson 1, we talked about different options. I am going to use my board. Let me show you how you can put it, even if it has a button like this, how you could still place it on here. Now, a lot of these you can put like a nail in here, and that way the nail will hold it like this. My husband has that on his board, but since I don't like the nails on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this, and I'm going to hold it putting the button like this. Okay, I am going to later move my macrame area up towards my button base, but for now this is what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put our string on here. This is going to be our base string right here, and this is how I put my button on there. As you can see, it's holding it with a clip. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my working string, and this working string, like I said earlier, it's a very long one, but it's okay because I want to make sure that I have enough. So my working string, remember, we had a total of like 80 inches, so when I pulled it in half, it's like 40. Yes, I do waste a lot of string, so a lot of strand, and that's okay. Now here I'm going to start with our simple basic square knot, the ones we have learned since lesson 1. So you're going to start, for this demonstration, I'm doing this here, and I am going to attach cast on to start my first knot. Look for my little ridge. Remember in lesson 1, this should be very familiar to you. This should be already something that you are able to do if you've been following our course from the beginning. So I'm going to be doing, see? So I'm going to do a couple of knots. You can do the design that you want. For the demonstration, I'm going to be doing simple square knots. That. And I will be adding beads to the design so that we can practice what we've learned in the past lessons 1 through 3. And it's going to be the same rule that we used about our design and how long it's going to be and everything. Now you have to take into consideration the length starting from the base of your button down all the way to the end of your eyelet that is going to go through this button. Okay, so I will show you as we go along how that is going to be calculated in your design. Okay, so once you start creating your bracelets, it will be the more you practice it, the more familiar you will become with how much string you used, what size beads are best. That can be something that you are going to decide for yourself. You can take suggestions from people that do tutorials and say this is the best size, but it all will come down to what you want to use, okay? What it works for you, what looks best for you. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and add some beads to put in our design. So before we add a bead, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and push this all the way up to the bottom of our button. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we pull all the way up like this. Okay, that way you don't have the string showing like this. If you want to leave a little bit to have movement, you can. Just a little movement on there so it's not too rigid. That is a good idea. That's a good thing to do. And then you can come back and clip it over the macrame buttons. I mean the macrame knots already. Okay, so that it can still hold it in place like that. And that way you can continue doing the rest. I've already created the needles at the end as we learned how to do it in our last lesson. I think we've learned it since lesson 1 right there. So I am going to go ahead and put in, I'm going to be using an 8mm bead. This is a poly resin bead. I'm going to be putting this through my 2 strands here to go down the middle of these 2. So we're going back to techniques we have used in our first, second, and third class. Okay, so I'm going to continue to create a design here as I add on beads. You do the same. Go ahead and decide what kind of technique you want to do. If you want to do the beads, a focal, whatever it is that you want to create as what we've learned, go ahead and work on that. When we are done with our design, once here I will tell you, go ahead and work about 6 inches or so of a design. Okay, that way we can talk about where you're going to stop, what do you have to take into consideration. So go ahead and work a design that is up to about 6 inches long, and we'll be back in the next section to show you how we're going to do the eyelet. So I know that I asked you guys to do 6 inches of design, but I want to explain something that is very important here. So what I want to do now is you want to make sure that you measure. So if I want 6 inches on a design here, only on the design, I'm going to measure from the bottom of my button all the way out, right? So if you see here, I'm like 5 inches from bottom of button all the way here. So that's my design so far. But I stopped there because I have to take into consideration how much from here to here measures. Okay, because I'm going to do that on the other end as well. So if you see this, from here to here, it's about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, this area right here. So only my knotting area right there, I'm going to make sure that I'm putting it right at that where the knot begins and when it stops here. So yeah, about 3/4 of an inch is what this is. Okay, so I have to calculate what this and this together would make. So my 3/4 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch, that's going to give me 1.5 inches. So that means that my design here with the beads has to be approximately about 4.5. Okay, does that make sense? It has to be, because I'm doing 3/4 of an inch here, my 4.5, and then my other 3/4 of an inch, this will equal a total of 6 inches in my design. So that is how you kind of have to calculate. Make sure you measure how many knots you did, how long of that is, you know, in inches. How long is it? Then make sure that you subtract what this is and what it would be here in the end together, subtracted from your total inches that you want. Okay, that way you will know how much to work this to. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to continue by measuring my design part only, which is that from here. I want it to be 6, but now I'm going to do my beads. And if I add one more, I'm going to be right where I want my bead area to be, which is going to be about 4.5, give or take a few centimeters. It's okay, or millimeters, doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be right to the exact. Okay, so right now I'm going to be adding one last bead, because when we do the eyelet at the end, the one that goes here, this is going to add a little bit of length to it. And remember, this type of closure is not adjustable. So this is something you would do on a bracelet for a specific size. We're not creating an adjustable slider. We are doing a button closure. So it's not going to be the same as if you have one of the sliders like this, where you can make it shorter or longer. It's going to close at a certain inner diameter or circumference of the wrist. Okay, so this is why measuring it out and getting it to where you can fit it on your wrist and it's going to be a comfortable fit is really important to know that it's not going to be adjustable. Okay, so once I add my next bead, which is going to be my last one, now I can continue from here out. Was 3/4 of an inch, so from here out, so it doesn't matter how many knots I did here. I'm going to work this until it's about 3/4 of an inch more. Okay, so you don't have to worry about how many knots you did, how many you need. Just work the rest of it to match your other side, which is going to be 3/4 of an inch in my case. Okay, so you have to measure yours and figure out how much more you have to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this part here, and then we're going to go into creating the eyelet for your button. Okay, so now that I worked the last square knots that I needed to get to my 3/4 of an inch that I'm doing per my design, then what I like to do is kind of look at it to make sure that it looks good. I want to check, make sure. And once I check, make sure, I'm going to go ahead and measure it. It should equal amount. If you go over a couple of centimeters or millimeters, or it's okay. It's all about an approximate fit. So remember how I said I wanted my design to be about 6 inches? So I'm going to put my measuring tape right there, and I am going to measure. So look at this. I got it right to the 6, and it was all based on just the measurements using my measuring tool, my measuring tape. Okay, so that gave me the size that I'm looking for my design. So this is going to be a smaller size bracelet. This is what I wanted, and I'm doing a 6 here. All right, so now I'm going to do the eyelet to go through this button. So at the beginning, we measured the button, and I measure it this way. Let's find the center of it and measure from side to side. So we said it was about approximately about 3/4 to a little bit, maybe. Okay, a little over. Wait, was it? I'm looking at this right. So yeah, so about 3/4 of an inch or so. So now we're going to start creating the buttonhole or the eyelet, so we can put our button through here. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to open this up, this section right here. We're going to open it up. Make sure that you do that, because we're now going to work on each side. Okay, we're now going to work on each side. So there we go. So we're going to start working any side that you want. We're going to go to the vertical lark knot that we learned in lesson number 2. So now that we know that this button here that we're going to create the eyelet for is about 3/4 of an inch wide. We're going to work any side. So we'll start like on the right side if you'd like. And what we're going to do is our vertical lark knot. We're going to come and only work on one of this right side. So this means I'm going to work my vertical lark knot like we did in lesson number 2. And we're going to put our string right on top of that one right side strand, and we're going to just pull it through that loop. Okay, with our macrame course, you should be able to do the lark knot on your own now. So now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to go underneath and then pull it through that loop. Okay, that's the vertical lark knot. That was a little refresher, and you're going to continue doing that. And here you do kind of have to keep track of the knots that you do, and only when you complete this 2 that create that little bump here. So there's 2. So every 2 lark knots, you're going to see this that looks like one side of the square knot. Okay, so in 2s, you're going to work in 2s, because this side has to match this side, and this side is going to be now based on the knots that you do. So you want to keep track of them. If you kind of work and get to a certain amount, make sure that they're in pairs, okay, and sets of 2. That completes one of these little ridges. So I'm going to continue. And I will measure on top and bottom, top and bottom. And bottom. And you can measure how much you have. Okay, I'm gonna have to do the side that I measured on that one, so it's gonna be inches right here. So we're almost at about the 3/4 mark. Okay, and I'm gonna work a couple, maybe 2 more knots on this side. Top and bottom. That's 2 knots to complete that right there. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my button part and kind of measure it. I want it to make sure that it comes out through here. So I'm going to do, because this is going to open up, we want to make sure that it goes through here, because we're going to close it up. So I'm going to do 2 more knots. So a little over, because this is a thick button. If your button is thin, then you could do it very close to what the size is. Remember, this is going to open up, so it's going to give it quite a bit of room to go in there. But I want to be doing one more set. Like this. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to count one of these, and when I count by the ridges that you see here, I'm going to count how many of these sets I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That means I did 18 of these knots, and those are the same amount of knots I'm going to do, but this time I'm going to do it on the opposite side. So I'm going to make sure these are apart enough to so that they're not on in my way. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same, and this time it's going to be on top this way. So that's the first one there, and then the bottom that way. So there's my first one. So I'm going to do 8 more of those on this side to match this side over here. Okay, so I'll see you back when I'm done making this other part. Okay, so now that you have them done, right, the same amount on each side. Like, again, I remind you, you have to have the same amount of knots. So for this, yes, you do need to count. So I did 9 on this side, 9 on that one, just because that would get me right to the size that I want for my particular project. But for you, you have to measure out according to what your button is, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these now together. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here. It doesn't matter what side you start. You want to make sure that we do a square knot now. And we're going to join them together with a square knot. Okay. And then I'm going to continue. You can do as many as you find secures your area right here. Okay, I'm going to do a total of 4 only. That's what I'm going to do. You can do 2, you can do 4, you can do, it depends on what you want. I like to do the little extra to give it that extra support at the end. Okay, and then this is where you're going to cut off right here. This area right here and this area right here, these are the 2 areas that you are going to cut off and make sure that you seal them. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it off camera for to respect TikTok's guidelines. So off camera I'm cutting off, and it's gonna be about that much. I'm gonna get it even closer because then I'm gonna do my lighting device to go ahead and seal those ends so that they don't unravel. So that's what I'm gonna do off camera as well. So that seals it right at the end, right there. So it gets it very nice and sealed so that it doesn't unravel. You're going to do the same to the other end, making sure that you're keeping the other strings away. Please keep the other strings away, because then what's going to happen is you are going to melt them, and then your bracelet would be done. And not in a good way. Okay, so that gives me a nice little seal onto that. So that is our eyelet. So what I'm going to do now is I like to make the ends of my eyelet kind of pretty. So you can do whatever you want on this side. You can put beads at the end of this to give it some kind of decoration to it. So I'm going to add some beads on here, and I will show you how to end this button closure bracelet. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give this a design. I'm going to be adding one of these beads here. So I'm putting one of these right there. This is like, I believe it's like a 6 mm. It's like a little, looks like a little round seed. It's like a seed bead, but it's kind of a little smaller. I don't know what to say, like a little donut looking thing. So I'm going to go ahead and add this little donut bead here, and I am going to do a knot. Okay, this is for what I like to do, or what I think looks really pretty. And I'm going to do an overhand knot like the ones we've learned throughout this course. Overhand. And coming through here. And I'm going to get my tweezers for this so that I can keep very close to my bead. Okay, so I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to keep close to my bead, and I'm going to pull. And then make sure that that's there. Okay, I'm going to do that. Now, some customers don't like something to hang from there, so you can finish that off like that if you'd like. You want to make sure that it goes through your button. See? Like that. But some people do like a little bit of hanging off of this. You don't have to do it too much. You can get yourself just a little bit of these little, and just create your own little end beads. It doesn't have to be too long. It gives you a really pretty. And we're going to do the other end as well. But it's a personal preference for you, okay? So now I went ahead and I added beads. After doing the knot, I'm going to go ahead and add these little beads right here. And I'm not going to do a long, just a little bit. So right around there is where I want them to hang. So I'm going to move this, and I'm going to do my knot, wrapping it around my fingers, overhand knot, pulling it through. And right here, I love to use my tweezers to come in here and hold the area where I want my knot to end at, which is right there. Like I said, I don't want it to be too much. And then I'm going to pull the knot, get it right there, and then I'm just going to push it in like this. Okay. Make sure that the bead that you put on here is going to hold and it's not going to come loose. And you do the same with the other side. It doesn't really matter what length they hang. Sometimes it looks nice if one hangs lower or longer than the other, in this case. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be precisely in the same place. It can be a little longer if you want. And this is where you can cut this off. Make sure that your knot's okay. I'm going to cut this off and this off at the end. And then I'm going to seal the ends off. To make it look nice and clean. Okay, there we go. With the eyelet, it added, so this bracelet is 6.5. Okay, 6.5. So it's not going to be a slider, it's not going to adjust, it's not going to be bigger. It's going to be for a 6.5. So this is what it would look like. See, I added the little beads, so gave it a little bit of a design on there. Not too much, not too long. It looks really pretty like that. So then this is the button closure. So I'm really happy that we got through the 4 lessons for you, and that way you can go watch the whole tutorial, the whole course from lesson 1, 2, and 3. This course will now, after completing this class, you can create your macrame bracelets. You can do your basic, and you can apply everything that you've learned to create your own macrame bracelet collection. So it was a pleasure teaching this and sharing it with you. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you in our next course.